Couture Construction, Season 10, Episode 140, published Telling the Story Through Editorial. Welcome back to Couture Construction. I'm your host, Andrew Denny, and you're listening to Season 10, The Build Revisited, a design journey from land to legacy. Every home has a story. Here's how it's built. This season, we've retraced the journey of luxury custom home from finding land and setting a vision through framing design details and everything in between, all the way to the very last step. And that final step isn't about finishes or final walkthroughs. It's about storytelling. How the work, the craft, the collaboration are shared with the world. Today's episode is called Published Telling the Story Through Editorial. And we'll discuss why getting a project into print still matters, even in a digital-first world. To guide us through this final chapter, I'm thrilled to welcome Jill Cohn, the new editor-in-chief of Luxe Interiors Design. Jill stepped into this role in 2024, bringing decades of experience in the world of design publishing. From leading divisions at esteemed publishers like Condé Nast and Random House to founding her own firm, Jill Cohn Associates, where she's produced over 150 design books that have become industry favorites. Since taking the Luxe helm, she's embarked on a listening tour across all regional editions, launched a fresh brand identity, and championed a more intentional, designer-first editorial approach that balances beauty with real-life practicality. This season, we've had the pleasure of featuring expert voices who've shaped what happens before the final photo shoot. Today, Jill helps us understand what happens after and why publication is more than just a moment of celebration. It's a part of the legacy of the work. Jill, welcome. Tell me about your role at Luxe and what drew you to this fantastic publication.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. And I'd love to tell you about what drew me to this. Well, first and foremost, Adam Sandow, his passion and commitment for the business is just, amazing. And he is a one-of-a-kind guy. And I completely, relate to his vision for the value of print, his passion for design. And I think this job very specifically is kind of the ultimate position, bringing together really my lifetime experience, working on luxury books, producing luxury books, marketing, at magazine companies, many years, 15 years at Condé Nast and at Time Inc., working with content from the magazines and marketing it in a more productive and powerful way in books. And then really the focus over many years of working with super creative, successful interior designers, architects, people in the home business, brands as well. Even 30 years ago, we were doing books with, Colfax and Fowler and Schumacher and Brunswick and all those famous companies that were foundational, and all the famous architects, Philip Johnson, we, over the years, I when I was at Time Inc. and Condé, we were publishing, 50 to 100 books a year.
Wow.
It was in all lifestyle because we did cooking. I did all the gourmet and Bon Appetit. So it was cooking, it was lifestyle. But, all of these lifestyle events happen at home. Mm-hmm. And the home is really still, it's the centerpiece, even if you're doing cookbooks and you're doing, holiday or whatever, it still centers around the home. And I think, I don't know what it was, maybe because I'm not such a foodie, that I was just so much more attracted to the, the home design world, and really also, I don't know, probably had a lot in common with the interior designers and craftsmen, and just weirdly, I think about it now, my background growing up with my parents had a textile factory. They made little girls' clothes, and,
Oh, how cool.
My mother was a writer, and, and somehow I realize now as I go to see some of the vendors we have, manufacturers, and I'm in their facilities, and they're cutting fabrics, and they're, I feel right at home.
Oh, that's so cool.
Grew up in the factories on the weekends. And And also, I was always really focused on branding and marketing. And at Condé Nast, I had the opportunity in my very early years to really get into the nuance and understand, because I was running the direct marketing, the difference, the nuance between, let's say, gourmet and bon appetit, where you were, talking to an aficionado or or somebody that was, more lifestyle and amateur, or the difference between someone reading, Vogue or Mademoiselle. There's all this marketing nuance. So I was very attracted to Luxe as a brand. I honestly felt like it had this huge opportunity because of the very interesting business model of being balanced across the country, where we see so much from every region. All the magazines get pitches from the regions, but they don't get them in the volume that we do. And you can really start to assess what these regions are about, and having our team live in each region, where we have editors and salespeople and, people that scout for us, and scene writers, and, a whole group of people that are, immersed in San Francisco or the Pacific Northwest or Texas. And our editors are, fifth generation sometimes. They know it. They're watching the culture change. They're watching the houses change. And I have an amazing team of editors. Many of them are, married to architects. They're, really in this world, and their perspective is amazing. So to be in this spot has been such a gift, to just kind of see it all and share kind of my experience with everyone.
Well, it sure seems like you're a perfect fit, and I would have to your background has lent itself to the publication in a lot of different ways. And in the last year, we've seen some significant change at Luxe. And I think that starts with the rebrand. So can you just kind of walk us through what the impetus of that was, and maybe help our listeners understand the context for that rebrand in a broader sense of the industry and what you're seeing as a whole?
Yes, I'd love to. We're in a visual world. We are, this is, our magazine is, the visual representation of what you're going to find inside. And I didn't think it was just about the name. I mean, I think the branding was very, focused on our name, and the image was secondary. And I will tell you that the value of an incredible image for me is primary. Everybody loves the story behind it, but the truth is nobody's buying the book with the ugly picture on the cover. I hate to say it. And not only that, but nobody's hiring designers that don't do beautiful work. And I always say to designers, 99% of the population is never going to see your work. They're only going to see it through your pictures. And that visual representation has to say a lot. And what I wanted was an unobstructed view of a great room, a great house, a great view, a great property. And it can't be done when the typography and white space was dominating. And so as soon as I got there, actually, even before I got there, I said to Adam, can I change the covers? He's like, of course, this is your vision. And that was one of the gifts, he was really very trusting. And I worked directly with him on playing with typography and actually the typography. It's funny because I asked you about your podcast being called Couture and Construction. What I was looking for typography that was used in couture, because I didn't feel that I thought Luxe had a very balanced femininity and masculinity, unlike some magazines that are maybe more garden focused or floral focused. I think a lot of men, especially because our private airport distribution is so strong. A lot of men read our magazine. They want to look at builders. They want to look at architects. They want to, you know, they want to see these properties. And we're in the wealth pockets. And I think that interests men and women. So I wanted something that had a balance of strength and timelessness. I didn't want really trendy, and a little bit of a touch of couture. So I think the typography was important to me. And then, Adam gave me the ultimate gift, which was, I said, do we really have to have the region like on the cover and a lot of type? Can we put it on the spine? And we realized that where we're distributed is within regions. And it was like, if you're at the airport in Palm Beach, you're going to see the Palm Beach region. We don't really have to, put it on top of the picture as well. And I think it gave us beautiful space. And, unlike the other magazines, we don't have titles on the cover either. So one of my favorite stories is going to LA at Design Week, and one of our advertising, marketing reps came up to me and she said, I just love what you've given us. I can hand somebody this magazine in LA and say, look, this is like a coffee table book, just put it on, And so that was the goal. And the feedback's been amazing. I mean, one of the greatest things is going to the shows like K-Biz or High Point, where you're seeing, hundreds of people at a time and walking around and people saying, oh, I love the way it looks. I love the way it looks. And it's like, we haven't gotten any negative feedback at all. So I thought, okay, if I've done one thing right.
Well, I'll tell you what, you nailed it. It's absolutely spectacular. And it really is, I feel like it resonates and really elevated an already elevated brand. And it just made it that much more special. But it was, it's funny. I would have nothing negative to say about the previous branding, but seeing it now, like, it's just a great example of what's possible. And sometimes you don't even think about it, but there's a fantastic example of this is what it was, and it was great. But this is what it became, and my goodness, it just took a different perspective. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I talk to a lot of people, and everybody loves it. So,
that's great to hear.
So obviously, Luxe is a print magazine, and it's beautiful. And to me, that's still my preferred way to consume content. It's just enjoyable. It creates space. It's part of the lifestyle, if you will, is being able to enjoy that. So I want to switch to a topic. Why does editorial coverage still carry weight for the design and build community? Why is it so important in a magazine like Luxe, so important to the industry overall?
Well, I actually think it's more important now than ever, because I think the digital clutter is overwhelming. I think the fact that, Instagram now, which, I think is such a big driver for everybody, has really shifted so intensely to video. They're competing with TikTok and their algorithm now. You go on to look at people's pictures and you're just, immediately swooped into the video scrolling and the, entertainment. You feel like you're watching
That's
TV.
Right.
You can't stay on a picture. When we decide to publish a house, a big part of our decision is I'm always looking at, and I say this to my editors, if I open a spread and I can stay on that picture for 5 minutes, I know we've made a good choice. I want somebody to be able to, bury themselves in that room, look at the rug, look at this furniture, whose furniture is it? Look at the creativity of the trim and how it connects and the palette and how it weaves into the next room that I can see beyond. You really want to study it. And listen, doing coffee table books my whole life spoiled me because our authors would shoot 500 to 1,000 pictures. We'd have to edit it down to like 180.
Wow.
And you're analyzing the pictures with people like Gil Schaefer and Stan Dixon and Suzanne Kassler and Ellie Coleman and the best of the best, where you're looking at like 6 spectacular rooms and you're like, oh, we can only fit in 3. And you're micro managing. You're looking at, well, is the rug amazing here? And is the art amazing here? And like, you're picking apples and apples from like, from the best orchard in the world.
I can picture you with like a magnifying glass looking at these images and trying to find fault and trying to justify.
And now we get submissions. And it's like, I'm, very, very, careful. I'm training 2 people right now. And as they submit, I'm looking at the pages and I'm like, okay, this is a $20,000 spread. Is this worthy? Is this kitchen good enough? Like, should we be giving this a spread? Is there another house you got that's better? Like, what are we looking at here? What's super interesting? Have you ever seen this before? Like, is the reader, I want people to open up our pages and go, oh, wow, I've got to tear this out. Because if I don't tear it out, I'm going to forget when I redo my kitchen, this is what I want. So I want something you can tear out. And, I spend all day looking at things online and taking screenshots and then I can't find them. They're buried in
exactly.
So it's really, I get pictures every day of people who are sending me video of them paging through the magazine and looking at their own rooms and posting it because, or going to an airport and they're seeing themselves on a cover. It is so meaningful. There's no replacement. It's kind of like, it's the difference of being on Zoom and in real life. That's kind of the comparison I would make.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. So you mentioned training editors, and that's got to be daunting. And what do editors look for? What do you look for in a publish worthy project? We talked about interest. We want it to be tear out worthy. Share with us a little bit deeper, especially for our interior designer listeners, what are we looking for from a guideline perspective when submitting, and what are your editors going to maybe love or not love in that process?
Okay. So I think the first thing I would like to say that the story behind it is important, and it is important. But if it's a great story and the pictures aren't there and the design isn't elevated, it doesn't kind of matter. And I hate to say it, but if you're going through a magazine and you're looking at a room that's not interesting, you're not even going to read the copy. Okay? If you're looking at a room and you can't look away, you're immediately saying, what went on here? Why is this so powerful? And then you read the story that they layered it with, tile and wallpaper and finishes on the walls and, and the fixtures and whatever. And it's like, oh my God, that's why it's so outstanding. So I am looking for something that's unique and creative. And the win for us is the full team. And we chatted about this before, but I've never worked with an interior designer who hasn't said to me that their best houses had a great architect, a great landscape designer, a great builder. Like when the full team is there of professionals, the trust level on the client and the full team is communicating, it's usually at a very high level. So when my editors present to me, they'll accumulate, we get hundreds of submissions, over 5,000 a year.
Wow. And
in New York alone, we get several hundred a month. So my editor, she will not have the time to share everything with me. She barely has the time to kind of review everything. So there are things that are immediately taken off the books. Some of them are, and I feel bad about this, where somebody might have done some, a nice job doing interior design. If the architecture is really weak, it's really hard to show those houses because we're giving somebody a 12-page feature, 12 or 14 pages. You want to give them the experience of the home, the property, the landscape. And it's like, we kind of, hate the idea of let's not show the outside, let's not show the landscape. Then you're kind of doing a mini, like, look at a couple of cute rooms that a designer did. It's not the full experience. So the win for us is the full experience with a full team that we love. And then you learn about the collaboration, and you learn about, usually those people have incredible craftsmen that work with them. So when you think about somebody who has the like, look, we're distributing our magazine to the wealth pockets of America. Okay. Everybody in these zip codes has at least one home. It's a very elevated group that, gets the magazine, and the trade gets the magazine. And we want to show them what's real in their region. And what we want to show them is the best of. So what we're saying is, this is, professional design. You're never going to see a house designed by a homeowner in Luxe. And we're showing people what can be for them. And really what we're endorsing, hire the professionals. Hire the professionals, because then you're going to get this result. So we love a great house. When you have a collaborative team, they push each other. And I know it because, having done architecture and design books, so many collaborations are the winning projects. We talked about this, Stan Dixon and Tammy Connor together, Gil Schaefer, and, it's like you get a great designer, Miles Redd, you get a great designer and a great architect, and they talk about how they push each other. And they talk about how, these clients that are smart enough to hire the professionals, many of them want what nobody else has, or they want something very customized to their taste. So that's what I'm looking for. I also love that we publish people who haven't been published before. And my editors often will say to me, okay, here's a designer. She's been submitting for 4 years. I think this is the best thing she's done. And like, I'll really take a deep dive into what I can show, because I do think it's important to listen. We could have a whole magazine of, of the top tier, but I don't do that specifically. I want a mix, because not only do I want to showcase new talent and creativity, but not everybody, wants the house that is, 100%, highest end possible, because people have second homes, and they have beach houses, and they have, sometimes it's just like an unbelievable exterior with a pool house and fun, game rooms and things like that. So there's a balance there.
I love that. And in your experience, how long does it take an editor to understand that theory?
Well, fortunately, when I came to Luxe, I have some editors who have been with us for quite a long time. And when I look at somebody who's kind of like in their perfect spot, they're living in the area, they're passionate about design, they really understand their region. Because one of the values of our regional distribution is the people reading our Luxe in San Francisco. They want to see in the well. They want to see the houses that are in the environment they're in, that have the views they have, that have the climate they have, that they can relate to.
Sure.
They're not really interested in maybe looking at New York City apartments. And then we focus on the middle of the book, the national sections of the book, to have more universal stories about kitchens, about bath, about fabric and textiles and market things, and things that everybody wants to know about. But the editors that do the well features in their region, they're experts in their region. And that I can't teach them. Mary Jo Bowling is like Pacific Northwest and San Francisco. Not only does she know everybody there, but she nurtures that community. I mean, I just love going to the San Francisco Antique Show and walking through with Mary Jo, and everybody's like, oh my God, you have the greatest team, and Lisa Lovely's there. And they travel, they know Tahoe, they know Sonoma, they know the whole environment. They understand, they spend a lot of time with the designers. And because Luxe focuses on, the makers in so many ways. I can go to San Francisco and go with Mary Jo, and we'll go to, Palette Check and watch how they're making things. We have lunch with the landscape designers who take me over to see the houses they're doing with sculpture and, biophilia. And like, they're so immersed in what's going on that when they bring me something, they're like, this is really at the heart of who we are. And so it's like they have so much expertise on top of the fact that they write so beautifully.
Oh, that is.
And it's challenging. Then we have, like Grace Hunt in New York or Jen Smith in Florida. They have these vast regions where, Grace has, New York City apartments that are done in a very elevated way. She's got the whole Brooklyn scene. She's got the Connecticut, the whole scene in Greenwich. The Hamptons is different. So it's also somebody who really has an understanding of a lifestyle of New York, Connecticut, and the Hamptons, and like how the houses are going to differ. And I can't tell you how many times we're publishing people that, like, the designer's done their house in town and their house on the beach, and we see the variation there. Or Florida, Jen Smith has Naples, Palm Beach, Miami, Broward. It's like Coral Gables. Even the home styles are different, but they become authorities in their region, and I love that, because we were at Design Miami last year, and one of the European CEOs, one of the big furniture companies, came in, and he was asking us about Florida design, and Jennifer was like, well, which Florida design would you like to talk about? And so actually, one of the key elements is having somebody in the region that really expresses and understands the region in a way where they're teaching me. When some Jen will say, this is a very Palm Beach house, or this is the new Miami condo. I just brought in Jennifer Bowles in the Southeast. And
that's big news. That's big news. Big news. And, she's written books on Southern design. She's written so many successful design books. So I love finding somebody who not only is an expert writer, but, she's kind of a cultural historian. And so my teaching and mentoring to my team is much more about identifying designers that are moving the needle, because I'm just looking at more than they are. And I'm looking at things that I think might be universal trends. What excites me about Luxe is that we start to see, because we have this aerial view, we start to see these trends, and I see things that are in Arizona or in the West Coast, and I start seeing them come to the South. People starting to do these, wellness pavilions. Well, they're old news in Arizona. Oh yeah.
So you kind of get to see a lot of that. I think we all teach, that's a great thing about teams, just like we're talking about a full team of an architect, designer, landscape, how they push each other and teach each other. Having a big team for me is a benefit to understanding more about regional design and kind of accumulating it to share national interest to the community at large.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's true in everything. Iron sharpens iron, and it sounds like that's what you've done. So, it's funny. We come back to team and we talk about the architect, the landscape architect, the interior designer, and the builder, and they all have this unique role in creating these truly exceptional properties. But in a previous conversation, you brought up a really fantastic point to me, and here we are, we're talking about images, we're talking about a beautiful magazine, Sometimes I think what gets lost in this is the photographer. And I'd love for you to share some experience in what that looks like, and maybe some of just specificity that is required for circumstance. So if you would share a little
bit. Very important.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that have to capture this in a way that really celebrates the collaboration.
Well, this is really important. Good photography can make or break, a project, but a lot of people have the wrong idea. And it's shocking to me. They see a photographer do beautiful work. They send him in and say, shoot the house. And they trust that the person's going to shoot what they want them to shoot. And that's where the mistakes are made. When there's a difference between doing a book and doing a successful book. And there are tons of people, everybody goes, oh, everybody has a book. Yeah, well, people don't know a lot of those books sell 2,000 copies. And then a lot of the books sell 50,000 copies. So what's the difference? So the 50,000 copy people that I work with, include people like Mark Sykes or Suzanne Kassler, people like that or Gianetti's, people that I've worked with for a long time who we really understand what is the story of what they're doing and shooting that. They don't shoot in the generic way, and they don't hire a photographer to send in. What they do is they say, here's what I do. And so I'm going to highlight that in my photos. And I remember one time going in, shooting a house, and a photographer was struggling over this shot. And the interior designer came up to me and said, oh my God, he's been on the ladder for an hour getting that thing on the mantle. And the mantle was there. I hated it. That the urn he's shooting was the homeowner's. I'm like, why aren't you saying anything?
Yeah.
I said, if you're not telling us, so what I require, the first thing I do when I work with somebody on their books is say, let's talk about your brand. What are you known for? What's your brand identity? Why do people hire you? And I always ask them, I say, if I came to you and said, I have 10 architects, why should I hire you? What do you do differently? Well, the first 5 things they tell me are their point of difference. I do big properties. I have a huge team, experienced team. I focus on, classical millwork, design, window packages, molding, layered interiors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, let's look at your pictures. Oh, well, here's a sofa and a pillow. That doesn't show me anything that you just said. Well, the interior designer shot it and gave me the pictures. Okay, well, maybe that shouldn't be what your book is about. Maybe we go and we shoot these properties and the outbuildings and work our way in and tell your story through photography. In the reverse, you can have a designer like Ellie Coleman, who said to me once, we were on book 3, and she said, I want to do this book about decorating details, everything we have, the trims, the nail heads, the swags, and I said, great, but let's look at the pictures. Can you see the trims in any of these pictures? I'm like, Ellie, we have to go back in. We have to go back in and we have to close up. And so what it is I'm always really coaching. Let's tell the story of what you've done and then shoot that. So the rule of thumb is this. Number 1, hiring a photographer to shoot. People make a mistake. Give me an estimate. They just want to know, what am I going to pay for? Okay. What they don't understand, because it's never really clear, it's in the small print, that they're hiring the photographer for a day rate, and there's a lot of limited usage there. Doesn't mean you can give the pictures to anybody. You can't give them to a vendor. You can't give them to a magazine. You can pitch to a magazine, but the magazines are paying again to use the pictures. Okay, so these are like single usage licensing. They're licensing usage. Now, these are your pictures, right? What do you want to do? The first thing you want to do is pick a photographer who understands what your work is about and what region you're in. I use great California photographers in California because they understand the light and when it has to be shot. If you bring in a California photographer for the interior of a New York City apartment, it's a little bit different. You have to see that they know how to do that.
Sure.
So there are people that are experts in their region. So you want to understand where they're an expert, what style they have. If they do a lot of dark and moody and you have a lot of bright and cheerful, that might not be the best mix. But then once you have the photographer, the most important thing is don't make any assumptions. You have to insist the minute you hire a photographer and you've concluded your deal, the first hour before you shoot a thing, you should do a deep dive walkthrough and say, here's what's important to me in this house. I created this molding. I crafted it to match the molding on the mantle. I matched I matched the pattern to what's in the rug. I want to show all those things together because that shows the brilliance of what I've done. You don't come in and say, frame me up a shot that you think looks good, because a lot of them frame up a shot and your kind of focal point is on the flowers. The focal point has to be, how do you find the most beautiful picture that exaggerates my personal skill? So that's the nuance there on producing. And what is the purpose? What is the purpose? And that's why it's a little challenging. A lot of people share the shoot, so I've done many, many books where the interior designer and the architect are shooting together and landscape, because the homeowner doesn't want to have 3 shoots. And then you have to say, okay, the architect wants the staircase and all this detail and it's beautiful. Okay. And that might take an hour, but you really want the pillows on the sofa and we have to get them both in. How do we do something that works for both and then detailed that works for both? They're more extensive. People think they're saving money doing it together. Sometimes, you're compromising. But so the pictures are really important. I want to be able to look at a picture, especially, this is what I learned from books. It's like, we want to tell your story. You should be shooting your story. And people used to send me, hey, I just shot 6 houses. I want to do a book. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's your theme? Because I don't know what story you're telling about you. So photography, it's a big part of the work we did when I was just doing books was creating teams. Who's the writer, who's the photographer, who's the stylist. Very, very important. Here's a big mistake. Interior designers are afraid to use stylists. They say, well, I don't want somebody moving around my furniture. I don't want somebody rearranging or bringing in, a bowl that I didn't buy. The mistake is that a really successful stylist is really a framer. They're a framer. They understand the story. Just like the story you have to tell the photographer. This is about my molding. This is about my staircases. This is about my, architectural details. Okay, so maybe there's a beautiful urn with a plant that goes up and leads your eye up to the corner of a ceiling. So you're looking at that molding. They have to understand what you want to point out, because if they're plopping flowers in the middle of a coffee table and that has to be the center of the picture, they're not really listening to your needs. And I don't mean, and I think also great stylists get behind the camera and they look into the frame, or they look at the computer now and they're like, wait a minute, this flower is blocking, a beautiful piece of hardware. It's blocking the fireplace. We have to move it. Or too many people are hung up on well, the room looks like this. Well, yeah, but you're going to shoot the back of these 2 big chairs, but they face the TV. It's like, well, let's judge them a little bit so you can see the fabric. So I think people are afraid to move a room around, but for editorial purposes, you have to have things not sitting on top of each other.
Well, and it's so funny you share that, because I can give a real life experience from a photo shoot a couple weeks ago. And, one of the things we forget is the photo is 2D. So we thought we had, the styled beautifully, and we had a flower arrangement that we wanted that was, just adding an organic element. And we had it centered, and if you walked into the room, it looked great. Well, styling and photography pulled that forward about a foot.
Yes.
So if just the perspective, and I was like, well, that's off center now. And he's like, not in the photo frame. He's like, it's where it should be in the photo frame. And it was like, oh, you know what? It was just that thoughtful detail, but it mattered. It really, it improved. It
matters tremendously.
It improved it greatly. And it was, you know, a 3-minute exercise. But it was thoughtfulness is what was behind it.
Last week we had a shoot, you know, even if you can't attend, the beauty of you know, FaceTime and Zooming. There was a shoot going on and somebody wanted approval of this kitchen. And I got on Zoom and the photographer showed me, and the scale of the vase and branches. Mm-hmm. In the picture, they were hitting the chandelier coming down from the kitchen. And I said, move it back, move it back. It needed to move back almost to the edge of the island because the relationship was out of scale.
Yep.
In real life, it looked perfect. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think designers more and more, even somebody this morning who's got very, very high-end brand, one of the most expensive designers on the West Coast, and has done several successful books, emailed me today saying, you know, I've been told I need to hire a stylist. And, you know, she's insulted. Mm-hmm. The truth is that the balance of product can look heavy. It's just like, you know, the old saying, you know, when you have too much jewelry on, one thing has to come off. And I think designers are so close to the work that sometimes they're like, well, that turquoise vase speaks to the lamp on the side. And like, if that moves, it's going to ruin the whole, but it might ruin the picture.
Well, it's interesting. And I think to distill down what I'm hearing, theme and intentionality, you have to put on your director's hat. And you have to tell your story through the images. And I think just going back to thinking about Instagram and, you know, the infinite scrolling, you know, you just see beautiful space after beautiful space after beautiful space. But at some point they all run together because it's not necessarily about the detail and about the story. It's just about a beautiful space. And, you know,
it's Instagram is instant gratification. And it's just like, you know, that impactful moment. We in print, we're about the lasting moment. And also our website, you know, very fortunately, we're not behind a paywall. And so we have all these regions, and no matter where you live, you can get on luxsource.com and look at these beautiful houses, you know, in every region and fantasize about what you can have. But I also look for the designer's creativity, and where I think the general homeowner really wants to see creativity in the public spaces, you know, in the living room, like designing a coffee table, the mantle, like just creative ideas for, you know, side tables and furnishing and pillows and fabrics. And I think that what I'm looking for is, you know, less generic. The last thing we want to do is kind of look like, you know, a resto catalog or something. And that's the other thing about photography. When we get a lot of photography, this is probably a challenge for you. Builders and architects, sometimes an install is done. They're like, oh, the house is perfect now. Before the family moves in, let's take the pictures, okay? But then the pictures look like a real estate. It looks like nobody's really living there. And I think in some cases, think about this, real estate photography works because realtors are interested in having someone see their own stuff there. So they want to look at an empty space. Oh, a big marble countertop. I could put my beautiful wood bowls on there. Oh, a lot of shelves. I could put my collection of blah, blah, blah. They can see their things in there. But when it's too generic and spec, and it's, you know, white bowls on shelves and, a green leaf on for a magazine like Luxe, where we're trying to inspire people to be creative. We want to show them what that looks like. We want to show them, the professional creativity of an interior designer and how they might layer that space or how they might accessorize it. That's why the styling is important.
The styling is everything. It is amazing, and it really does have to be down to the nuance, the difference in photography where it's has a patina of life, and the sterility of new. It's just hard to do. So.
And the expectation, a lot of people say, well, I'm hiring one of the great photographers. Well, I work with the great photographers, and I totally appreciate the beauty they can bring to just like, a wood floor with the ray of sunlight coming in, whatever. That's a beautiful accent. But if they're looking at an empty space and they say to a designer, it needs some florals or something, and a designer says, I like it like that, they have to shoot it like that. And we once had a situation where one of my favorite designers shot a house and the kitchen was way overstyled. And we were like, oh, how did you let that happen? And she's like, listen, my client was insistent. He had been looking at, some of these kitchens that had like 100 lemons and whatever, and just said, I want to do that. I want to do that. It didn't go with the rest of the house. It wasn't a maximal house. And she's like, so they're hired to do a job too. And it's not coaching the styling. So I think there's a lot of faith and trust that people have, like, oh, I'm hiring a top photographer. Nothing's going to go wrong. Well, if you don't direct them and you don't support the styling and you don't put in creativity, that can go wrong. It needs to have everything.
So, final topic, and this is more of a question. I would love for you to share an example of a recent feature that really resonated with you and just, something that you loved and that you were inspired by.
Okay. So there's so much. It's really there's so much, but I'll mention two. One is in our newest issue it is July, August. We always look for something for kitchen and bath that's different. And I was pitched this house, it's out in Napa, and I look at the kitchen and it's got, beautiful quartzite counters, white oak cabinetry, a very cool hammered, iron hood, this beautiful, beautiful stone. And it was just spectacular. And then I start looking at the other pictures, and the exterior is this unbelievable property with landscape, really natural. It doesn't look like there's anything there. It just looks like a beautiful landscape garden to walk around with stone and grasses and a water feature. And then I start looking, and hidden into it is a beautiful stone kitchen, the same stone, but with, really high-end, gorgeous kitchen appliances built into this wall. It's got the same iron, but the stone is rustic. It's got furniture built in there, and it's got, the wooden stone with an outdoor shower. And it's a material story. Of course, it's called Set in Stone. It's a Healdsburg house, and the materials, you'd appreciate this in your line of work, where the whole thing just blows you away. And it's wood, it's stone, it's marble, it's a material story. But it is as kind of earthy and elegant as you can get. I mean, this is really, we're talking about incredible metal sculpture outside. There's a table. We were like, what is this? And it looked like a kind of a black oak. It's actually a tree.
Oh,
that's
wow.
been honed and lacquered and used as a step that goes down into this fire pit. And
Oh,
of course, yeah, it's like the ultimate Napa environment, but you don't even realize you're actually reading a kitchen story and a material story. And then, of course, there's a pool house, with an open air bathroom with the same limestone walls, a concrete sink, a wood slat trellis over the
oh,
shower, and the pattern play with the sunlight that comes in, and a faucet and a shower head and a rubbed bronze finish. It was like I I looked at that and I was like, I can't wait to show my market editors and Catherine and Sarah who do our market pages, and they're so great. I'm like, guys, I have something for you. And it was one of those. I'm flipping through the pictures and they're like, oh my God, oh my God. There was no question about it. And so this is like one of these things where full team, project team, with like, and it was an old structure that they brought down. It's like, oh, there was, it was just like, there was an architect, there was, cabinetry people, kitchen people, vineyard design landscape firm. It was
oh,
like the full thing. And, and the cool thing about it is you could use any one of these ideas. Even if you have a tiny little house
mm-hmm.
and you don't have a huge budget, you're like, you know what? Using the same materials inside
Mm-hmm.
and outside, it brings this cohesive flow
Mm.
into the house. But the palette and the mood and the trees, and then there was a deck with the pool chairs. It doesn't even look, each element of it doesn't even look that fancy.
Mm.
When you put it all together, you're like, oh my God. But it's, yeah, that inspires me. Um, just, admiring the beauty of it. Then the other thing that happened the other day, this is almost even better. Grace says, oh, I got this submission and I had been copied on it. Designer in New York, young. I never heard of him. Young guy, looked at his pictures, so cute. Maybe, I don't know. He looked in his 20s. This Dumbo apartment in Brooklyn that blew us away. Every part of the interior was so creative and well thought out. The fabrics were amazing. The finishes were amazing. The palette was gorgeous. He connected it that you could see out the window on the bridge, and even the grid of what he had selected on the fabrics spoke to what was outside. It had an energy, and he missed nothing. It was flawless. I looked at it. I said, we have to let's not wait. Like, yes, we're accepting it. Can we move something else out? Because it's that good. And we're like,
Wow.
who is this guy? And, I looked him up. I think he had two other things published. And I love that we got back to him like in a minute and said, this is a resounding yes. Finding new talent is just as exciting as finding something that, like a 6-team project that's,
Mm-hmm.
in Napa, and seeing something equally creative from somebody like right out of the gate. That's a pleasure of this job.
That is so cool, and the fact that you continue to be surprised and delighted
Yes.
with you've
Yes.
150 books, countless magazines, and here you are last week being surprised and just over the moon
Oh,
about
and like
something new.
almost every week,
Yeah.
every week. It's like, we talked about this earlier. I Something happened. There was definitely a shift, I think, and I really do think that 2 years of lockdown with COVID,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it wasn't 2 years in every region, but definitely in New York it was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we were all stuck inside. People were stuck inside.
Mm-hmm.
I think people, not only, the economy has grown, and we know that people in the wealth pockets, their wealth has grown,
Mm-hmm.
and those people who, were stuck inside their several houses saw the possibility of pushing talented creatives to think outside the box. Now
Mm-hmm.
I'm buying my vineyard house. Now I'm buying my house on the beach. Now I'm
Mm-hmm.
buying this, and I want it all. I want the outside pool, but I want the shower and I want the wellness pavilion. I want my Pilates studio too.
Mm-hmm.
Then I want my private room. I want my office. I want my meditation room. I want my wine room too.
Mm-hmm.
And of course the kids, kids or grandchildren are coming. So let's give them their own part of the property and with like some communal playhouse too. And what happened was all of that dreaming then went into our community of interior designers, architects, with people pushing them to think out of the box. And those people, I think, are doing amazing, amazing work. And I think that's why it never ceases to bore me. I'm like, what is it about me that I could not get sick of it?
Well, and I would echo that. This is a tough industry, but the reward is being part of people's stories, connecting with creatives, and just seeing these unimaginable things come to life and bring a lot of joy and pride and livings to people. It's really just a wonderful thing.
Oh, totally. And it just makes me think, last week we have, a lot of work, a lot of content, a lot of submissions. Everybody's working really hard. And last week I'm throwing more things on people and I'm saying, listen, I'm sorry, guys, we're really kind of in a little overload situation. And I'm like, but look at what we get to do. And they're all like, yeah, I mean, how lucky are we? Like, we're living in the world of beauty.
Yeah.
And then sharing it.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is, it is a dream. It is a dream for everybody on our team to be able to be in this world because we're fortunate. We're really fortunate.
It's amazing. Well, Jill, you have been fantastic. Your insight is just absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
We finish with all of our guests with a little rapid fire question and answer segment that is more about who you are as opposed to what you do. So what is your go-to summer weekend activity?
Well, sad to say, I do spend my weekends walking through all of the New York City neighborhoods. I travel so much during the season when we don't have a lot of events. I'm in the city. I'm in the city when no one else is here. So I do love, my husband and I can, we go to a different neighborhood every weekend, and we'll eat in Tribeca and walk to the pier and go to the West Side or explore, and it's kind of a fun thing I don't get to do on the weekday. Oh,
that's awesome. And that's a great way to never run out of something to do too.
Exactly.
You mentioned your travel. What's one thing you never travel without?
Okay, so everybody I work with laughs at me. For the last, I would say, decade, I travel with my own coffee and French press because I'm addicted to the bulletproof coffee. I'm addicted to bulletproof coffee. I got turned on to it about 10 years ago, and it was like a mold-free, doesn't, it kind of like, doesn't give you brain fog. So I'm convinced that it works, and I can't go anywhere without it.
Oh, that is so funny. I never would have guessed that. We've had some interesting answers on that. We had a gentleman that traveled with his own pillow and this, but that one's good. That one's good.
I've got, and I would recommend the metal French press because the glass ones, I've gone through quite a few of them. So,
well, especially with you traveling,
right? Exactly.
Design taste, neutral or bold?
Neutral at home because I need the calm to think of.
Okay. Build your dream backyard, pool, garden, or outdoor kitchen.
I'm going to say pool only because I had a big property for a long time and I don't have a green thumb. Well, we also had too many deer and my cooking is a failure. So I'm going to have to go for pool.
Yeah, just float and enjoy, right?
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you again. It's been wonderful. Really appreciate your time. I know you're very busy. Listeners, this season has shown us that building a home is about far more than construction. It's about vision, collaboration, and the story behind the walls. And in the end, sharing that story through print, photography, and editorial. We know this helps honor everyone who brought it to life and inspires what comes next. Thank you again, Jill.
It is my pleasure, and I hope to see you soon in your magnificent showroom with all the beautiful materials and all of our books sitting on your tabletop.
Anytime. The door's always open. So let's recap. Publication isn't just about exposure, it's about legacy. The best stories are grounded in authenticity, collaboration, and context. And even in a digital-first age, thoughtful editorial storytelling still makes great design unforgettable. That brings us to the end of Season 10. Thank you for coming on this journey with us from raw land to published project. This episode, along with the entire The Build Revisited series, is now available to stream on all major podcast platforms and for the first time ever to watch on YouTube. If you've enjoyed this season, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us on Instagram at Couture Construction for updates, behind-the-scenes moments, and news about what's next. This episode was produced by Cast Collective and Chelsea Rand. Until next time, keep cultivating creativity.